rumor, Brandon Ingram and Lonzo Ball were untouchable. Like, we can't, no, I don't want to trade to get Paul George. We have to have these guys. And now it does feel like, even though this season has started pretty well for the Lakers, I don't feel like they're untouchable anymore. Now, again, just taking the temperature of maybe just NBA Twitter, people are floating. I mean, if we can get Bradley Beal, I'll give up Ingram or Ball. Is that the way it feels to you inside the Lakers camp, that or at least inside the Lakers fan camp, that maybe these guys are no longer untouchable to people? They are willing to trade them to get another star player?
Yeah, I do think there's maybe more of a willingness amongst the fans. I would say, though, that I think they've always been touchable, like from a practical sense from the organization, right? Like, you signed a 33-year-old LeBron James who turns 34 in a month. And are these 21-year-old kids going to be ready? Probably not. Like, Lonzo and Ingram will probably be pretty good players when they're 25, 26 years old. And that doesn't matter that much. They don't have that type of time. They always knew that they were not very unlikely to be title contenders this year. This was a transition year. But the one thing I would say regarding guys like Beal, Anthony Davis is a different breed, right? He's a different caliber of player. But I think the Lakers' plan, which I subscribe to, has been to keep that cap space open for this summer, to sign that second max guy for free without having to give anything up. And then you look to move one or a few of the young guys in order to find that third guy, or just pieces that may fit a little bit better. But I mean, we always get super invested in young guys, but in the circumstances that the Lakers are in, first of all, they don't have the opportunity to make similar styles of leaps that other guys can. Once you have LeBron in the mix, it's just a different equation. Everybody plays off of him, and rightfully so. But just the timelines just don't really match up. And it wouldn't surprise me. I came of age during the Nick Van Exel, Eddie Jones, Cedric Ceballos. Those were fun Laker teams.
Those
for
were
a second round.
The last Lakers team I enjoyed before this one.
Right. And those were first, second round playoff type teams. When it came, they signed Shaq and they started out on the team. But when they won titles, none of those guys were on the roster. And it would not surprise me if none of them, or only one or two, were on it when the Lakers are really getting to the point where they're contending for titles.
Yeah, you talk about that game plan to wait to free agency and see what happens. And I've heard I heard your boy Anthony Irwin on Locked On Lakers talking about, we're not going to make a move if we can sign, Kevin Durant or whoever next year. But to me, that's like the same story that's been for years now, why they didn't trade for Kawhi Leonard, why they didn't trade for Paul George. It's like, well, why would we trade him if we can get him for free, and then you don't get him for free? So it seems you keep kicking that can.
They got LeBron for free, right?
They did get LeBron for free, absolutely.
And LeBron and max cap space and the market of Los Angeles, I think, is a fairly compelling free agency pitch. Now, if they fall flat on their face, then it will be I have to at least give the Lakers time to execute the plan that they've laid out all along. They said it's going to take us 2 years over these two free agencies to really get to the point where we want to get to and put the roster together. Now, if they walk away from free agency this year without that second guy, because they did get the first one, if they come out away with that, then I will be the first one in line to criticize that you should have moved those pieces. And it may come down to that. Maybe Anthony Davis becomes available, and who knows what the bidding war for that would be, right? But I have to give them time to at least execute the plan that they've set out at the beginning.
So going back to Brandon Ingram, I feel like he has the most amount of angst as far as writers, bloggers talking about him, in that he didn't take this leap. The fit next to LeBron James seems kind of pained or struggled. And then you tweeted out these interesting stats. His per 36-minute averages when LeBron's off the court, his per 36 is 28.5 points, 4.5 assists, and a 62% almost true shooting percentage. When he's on the court with LeBron, per 36, only 15 points, 2 assists, and 49% true shooting. So what's the issue there? Are those numbers overstated with what's actually happening, or is there a real problem with Ingram and LeBron playing together?
I think there's a real problem. I've never been quite as high on Ingram as I think a lot of the other people in the Lakers sphere are. And part of that is because he does not do things well off of the ball. His footwork is very sloppy on catch and shoot threes and coming off of screens. So he's not a guy who can get those shots up cleanly. It takes him a while to kind of gather up all of that length that he has. And by the time that he's able to do that, it turns an open shot into a contested shot. Defenders have time to recover in that time that he's gathering all of that up. He has taken 2 field goal attempts all year off of cuts. Remember, he's operating off of LeBron James, right? Like Kuzma's, I think, in the low 40s, high 30s, something like that. Everybody else is able to get these looks off of that. But the Lakers have kind of raised him in a way that I don't love, in that I feel like they skipped some intermediary steps last year by saying, we're going to give you the ball and you're going to be a 20-point per game type of guy. Mm-hmm. And in that, those type of looks and those actions where you're able to get shots off of other guys' shot creation, he didn't really learn that, and he didn't get a lot of reps at that. And as a result, LeBron comes in the fold, one of the most dominant on-ball players in the league, and he's having a hard time finding his way of how do I get shots off of what LeBron does, whereas everybody else is able to do that a little bit better. So I think that's going to continue to be an issue, and I think it's something very much worth monitoring.
Are they going to just turn over? Could they turn over this just like the second unit to Brandon Ingram or something? I'm saying this out of ignorance of not, I don't watch all these Lakers games.
Sure.
I'm flipping my channels. I want to see what the Kings are doing. I'm obsessed with I'm obsessed with the Kings.
The Kings are fun, man. The Kings are a lot of fun.
The Kings are amazing. They're like the team I watch now. But no, it's like, is there a way to separate their minutes more so we can fully utilize Brandon Ingram's talents a little bit better and like just give him free reign when LeBron's resting? Or is there just maybe just the fit? There's maybe he's the trade piece. He's the trade bait.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's both. It's that. So for one, for example, in the Orlando game with Rondo out, they've been kind of experimenting. Are we going to have Lonzo run a bit more with the second unit? So he may start the game, same with Ingram, but comes out at the 6-minute mark in the first quarter, comes back in to lead the second unit once that comes around, right? So they've done that, and Brandon's done well when he's had the opportunity to do that. Can you do that when Rondo comes back? I'd like to see them do that and maybe shorten the rotation, take Lance out of the rotation and play BI and Rondo together while Ingram still starts but comes out early in the first. That is something they can do. But at the end of the day, Keith, like, if it's going to work, like, you can't avoid LeBron the whole game. You can stagger
right.
all you want, right? But if Brandon's going to play 30, 32 minutes, a lot of those are going to overlap with LeBron James no matter what way you slice it. So in order for this to work long term, they have to figure it out. Outside of that, the best case scenario for the Lakers is for Brandon Ingram to look like a budding star who's just being held back by LeBron James so that he thrives when he's not next to him, but is struggling to have that. That's probably the best selling point for a trade, right, is for him to look like that. It remains to be seen whether the rest of the league will have that opinion. But if they don't figure that out, to me, that is kind of the road that's going down.
If they don't end up figuring that out, or if the team has some more struggles like with the schedule and their record dips a little bit, are there going to be calls for Luke Walton? I feel like every head coach of LeBron James is on the hot seat. Just that's kind of how it is. And I know, again, just reading the temperature of Lakers fans that I interact with, there's always like, why isn't, the most recent game, like, why did Lonzo Ball not play in the fourth quarter? There always seems to be questions of why isn't Josh Hart playing more? Why is KCP taking these minutes? So do you think if the record dips, if Brandon Ingram doesn't develop or anything, will the calls for Luke Walton grow louder, like for him to get fired, or will will Pelinka and Magic Johnson just stand by him for another year with this patience? No, it's a 2-year plan.
I think it's going to depend. So I think Luke will make it through the season at this point. I think that he's shown, signs of progress. I think a lot of it's going to be results based in terms of the fans and for the front office too, to a certain extent. But like you said, that's part of coaching LeBron James, right? Like, he's had X's and O's wizards that have coached him, and motivators, and a video coordinator, and Spoelstra, and all of these guys. Like, it's always going to fall because it can't be LeBron's fault, right? I say that kind of tongue in cheek, right. But that's just rarely ever going to be the narrative. Is that and nor should it. Like, look, man, Lakers were a pleasantly surprising 35-win team last year. I didn't think they were going to win that many games. Like, outside of LeBron, like, if you take LeBron off of this roster, they don't make the playoffs, right? They improve a little bit. They're maybe a high 30s type win team. But to me, NBA Twitter and all of that, we have a hard time with things that are just average. Okay, like, Luke's not a great coach, not a bad coach either. He's an okay coach. And it's hard, after the Orlando game, a lot of people were like, fire Luke Walton. I'm like, they've won 8 out of their last 10 games, and they've been improving, and they're perfectly fine. They haven't overperformed. They haven't underperformed. They're about where I think we'd hoped and expected them to be. But that's just the very nature of this. To me, what determines Luke's future is what happens over the course of this offseason. Do they sign that second max guy? And does that come with some, hey, we want to bring our own guy in? And when I say we, it's not just the front office. It's LeBron James, Clutch Sports, Rich Paul, all of that dynamic too. I don't think something happens in season, but I'd be curious to see if the Lakers don't get, Western Conference Finals or something like that. If they don't do that, I think that is in play over the course of the offseason.
All right. If you were given the ear of the coaching staff to proffer a suggestion for something that you thought was eminently fixable, or like a player pairing or a strategy type thing that you would like to see, what would be your recommendation? If you thought something, hey, this is completely fixable in my opinion, and Luke Walton or the coaching staff was like, hey, you might got any ideas? What would your idea be?
So I think they get their play calls in late. I get to sit like court level on. And I've been to all of the Laker games this year, but have been at court level for a few of them. And one of the things that I notice on the offensive end is the play call gets in a little bit late, and then they spend the first 8 seconds or so of the shot clock like just getting guys into their right spots. And then, they'll run the first action, and by the time, if that doesn't work, then there's 10 seconds, 8 seconds left on the shot clock, and now it's just a high ball screen or something like that, and LeBron's trying to bail you out, or Ingram perhaps. So that's something that I think is very fixable. I also think that the screen setting and using on the team, I think there's a lot of player development. You'll be shocked to hear me say this, but film room work that that are correctable things. I think they put more of their focus on that on the defensive end, and I think that maybe this is something that looks different and better in January or February, but there are a lot of really basic NBA offense things in half court sets that they don't do well, that gets a little bit masked by the individual superiority of LeBron, and just run a high ball screen for LeBron or clear out a side for LeBron, that they could be doing better, that they're not fully utilizing the potential of what they could do.
Another issue with this team is the enigma that Rajon Rondo is. So when he comes back healthy, what is the best version of this Lakers team? Is Rajon Rondo part of the best version of what this year's team can be, or would you just turn it more over to the other guys?
I think Rondo can organize the second unit. I think that's the most effective utilization of him. One of the things that I haven't liked about him and LeBron sharing the court together is you lose a bit of the value of Rondo. Is for all of his warts and whatnot, he is that quintessential floor general, coach on the floor type of point guard, right? We can debate the merits of having that type of guy in 2018 when the game has changed to a certain degree, but there are periods of time, and we've seen this with Rondo out, where the second unit is particularly discombobulated, and Rondo can combobulate them, right? But when it's LeBron on the court, LeBron does that too. So if LeBron has the ball in his hands, what is Rondo's value? It's significantly less than it is when you have other guys on the court. Now, Rondo can take some of those responsibilities off of LeBron's shoulders, so he doesn't have to do it as often. But if we're talking the best version of this Lakers team, I think it involves other guys. I think Lonzo, for example, is the Lakers' best defensive guard, and he's a guy that can, take on that responsibility, where you're not going to get that from Rondo at his age. So, yeah, I think second unit Rondo and organizing that is the best version of him.
What's the best lineup? So the best version of this team, is it Lonzo? Is it Josh Hart? Is it Kuzma, LeBron, and JaVale? Is Brandon Ingram even involved in what the best best 5-man lineup?
No, I don't think Ingram is, and it's not because I don't think he's one of the 5 best players. It's just a matter of how do 5 guys operate off of each other. Ingram got suspended earlier in the season for throwing a punch at Chris Paul, right? And during that time, that's the lineup they started: Lonzo, Hart, Kuzma, LeBron, and JaVale. And that lineup has really strong 5-man data, great net rating and all of that. Mm-hmm. And a big part of that is because you've got guys who can operate off of him. All 4 of those other guys can do something off of LeBron, where Ingram's still struggling to find that spot. Now, for political reasons and do you really want Ingram on the bench in the last 5 minutes of a close game? Not at this point, that's for sure, because everyone's still figuring things out, and he deserves a lot more time to figure it out than the 20-ish games that they've played. But as of right now, yeah, that's their best 5 in terms of how all 5 interact with each other.
Yeah, I kind of like that. Kind of like that 5-man lineup. I gotta say, I heard on Locked On Lakers them mention a death lineup, and I didn't even know what that lineup was. I was like, I didn't know the Lakers had a death lineup. It was like, should
Yeah.
the Lakers play the death lineup more? I'm like, I don't know who that is. Like,
So they're theoretically, it's like LeBron at the 5 and Kuzma